Today we're going to be looking at FERPA versus the General Law for the Protection of Personal Data in Mexico. We will understand more about student privacy in the US and Mexico. FERPA has two main goals. It's meant to guarantee access to student records for parents and students, and it's meant to limit third-party access to those records. Mexico's law is more broad and all-encompassing. It's meant to guarantee access, rectification, cancellation, and opposition of data use. It guarantees all citizens control over data up to the right to be forgotten, which is the total deletion of data from any public sector or publicly funded agency. So what counts as a student record in each country? In the US, those are things like grades, IEPs, and disciplinary records. Directory information, such as student contacts, are also counted as student records and protected under FERPA. Things like teacher notes, police reports, peer-graded papers, sports rosters are not considered student records, and so they are often available to the public, or at least in the case of teacher notes, not considered private. In Mexico, grades, health, religion, everything else is considered protected, and public and private institutions are not allowed to share it if they receive any public funding. What are the teacher's duties? Well, in the US and in Mexico, it's very similar. We're meant to lock physical files and password protect digital records. We're not supposed to allow students to see others' grades, and we can only share grades and demographics with approved staff. So that might be counselors, administrators, special educators. Even other teachers cannot see the grades of your students. Any request to see grades or data from reporters, non-guardians, researchers must be denied. In Mexico, one needs written consent for any sharing of sensitive data, and grades are never to be posted publicly. It sounds a lot like us in the US. At the age of 18, some things shift. So under 18, parents control the records, and over 18, the students control. In both countries, it's the same. Students are allowed to see their records when they're under 18, and their parents are allowed access to it within a reasonable time period. But the moment that they turn 18, their parents are no longer considered in charge of their records, and so the students would have to consent to their parents seeing them, because the students are in charge at 18. As far as rules for researchers, both countries are very similar. In the US, anonymous data is usually okay to be collected, and any identifiable data requires signed consent from parents. In Mexico, you also need formal approval from the school, and you have to prove that there will be no harm to the students. Finally, what happens if the law is breached? Well, in the US, you file a formal complaint, you request a hearing from the US Department of Education's SPPO, or with IDEA if it's a special education issue. And after the hearing, the SPPO may withhold funding until the offending school is within compliance. Importantly, there's no civil litigation for FERPA violations, so you can't sue the school if your data has been breached as a parent or as a student. In Mexico, on the other hand, once you file a complaint and you've demanded your ARCO rights, ARCO standing for access, rectification, cancellation, and opposition, once you've demanded that, the school has 20 days to respond, and the INAI investigates and imposes fines if they find that the school has violated your data rights. They might order data deletion, and schools can even be charged with criminal penalties, and the victims may sue. As for teachers, if you accidentally share private information, you need to report it immediately in the US and document what happened. If privacy is violated in Mexico, you report to the INAI. So in conclusion, in both countries, there are very similar protections, though it appears in Mexico there are more sweeping protections for data, most importantly, that right to be forgotten. Yeah, and that concludes our brief summary of the privacy laws for students and their data.